Arab Jews are a thing. In fact, Arabs were Jews before Ashkenazis even existed. King Herod was an Arab on both sides. The first Jews to ever exist were Arabs. This all comes at great irony because Zionism today is hateful towards Arabs. But what these racist Jews don't understand is that Arabs were the original Jews, and that Zionism was just an Ashkenazi separatist movement. Or to put it another way, Zionism is an Ashkenazi thing. Zionism wasn't Jews returning back to their homeland because there were already Jews living in the Middle East. They never left. Zionism was an Ashkenazi separatist movement founded during the age of colonialism. While Palestine is technically in West Asia, the boundary between Africa and Asia is completely arbitrary, and I have no problem putting Zionism as part of the scramble for Africa, which happened at exactly the same time as the foundation of Zionism, both occurring in the late 1800s. Exploiting Africa, stealing its resources, and forcible annexation of African land for European benefit was the driving force behind the scramble for Africa, and Ashkenazi Jews were no exception to this exploitation of the continent. Ashkenazi Jews participated in the genocide of the Herero and Nama people in Africa, in what is today Namibia. Now, as I said before, there were already Jews living in the Middle East. They never left the Middle East. There were Ottoman Jews, and these Ottoman Jews widely held and supported the Armenian genocide, the victims of which were mostly Christian. The Armenian genocide happened between 1915 and 1917 and was part of World War I and well before the establishment of Israel. By the way, to this day, Israel does not recognize the Armenian genocide because Jews supported it. The Star of David is not a Jewish symbol at all. It's an Ashkenazi and Zionist symbol. The Star of David is a hexagram and existed in many cultures and religions well before it ever became associated with Jews. The Star of David only began to be symbolizing Jewish identity in the 19th century, which was the age of Zionism. This only happened as a reaction to the cross symbolizing Christian identity, and was primarily due to Ashkenazi nationalist sentiment and the desire to separate from Europe. The desire to separate from Europe can't be separated from the age of scientific racism. While it is often said that Zionism was a reaction to anti-Semitism, this is not the entire truth. Anti-Semitism, by the way, is a misnomer coined by a racist Zionist named Maurice Steinschneider, who believed that Palestine belonged to white Austrian Jews. Steinschneider was a race realist who believed that Ashkenazi Jews were a separate race of people called Semites. He was, of course, wrong. Ashkenazis weren't Semitic people. They didn't even speak a Semitic language. They spoke Yiddish, a Germanic language. Hebrew, which is a Semitic language, was a dead language only spoken during religious ceremonies and chants. It was revived by a Zionist named Eliezer ben Yehuda, who stole words from Arabic in order to modernize the ancient and dead Hebrew language. Theodor Herzl became an Ashkenazi separatist because he was convinced by the scientific theories of the time, which stated that Ashkenazi Jews were a separate race of people distinct from other European people. Theodor Herzl being the founder of modern Zionism. He, like many other Ashkenazis, were atheists, and atheists are far more likely to accept scientific theories to explain observed phenomena. So while in the past he advocated for the assimilation of Jews into European society, him, along with other Ashkenazis, being brainwashed by race theory is what made them believe they could never assimilate and that separating was the only solution they had. Watch my video, The Real Reason Why Jews Are Atheists, for more information about that. Zionism was different from other ethnic separatist movements in that they sought to annex land that they weren't living on, but rather land from what they deemed to be an inferior race of people. It must be noted that Zionism wasn't the only Jewish separatist movement. In fact, there is a Jewish separatist movement going on right now in Israel, where Jews in the north want to separate into the state of Galilee. Theodor Herzl was an Austro-Hungarian. At the time, Austro-Hungarian Empire had good relations with the Ottoman Empire. Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire. So seeking to annex Palestine for Ashkenazis was geopolitically amenable at the time. In fact, Herschel wanted the Ottomans to give Palestine to the Ashkenazis in exchange for wealthy Ashkenazis helping to pay off Ottomans' massive debt. But the desire to annex Palestine for white Jews was not the only separatist plan. There were plans to even annex Madagascar. There was also the Ugandan scheme, but you'll notice that none of these plans involved the actual indigenous people who lived on these lands. What all these plans had in common was stealing African territory and giving it to white Ashkenazi Jews. Zionism was in every way a product of the scramble for Africa and scientific racism.